For Christmas, my parents gave my daughter an iPhone. She looked at it like it was proof that maybe this year was finally different. Then she saw what was already on the screen, asked me what it was, and my blood went cold so fast, it felt like my body forgot how to stay warm. But that came a little later. Christmas morning started the way it always did in my parents' house. Tree lights blinking like they were trying to hypnotize everyone into acting normal. Wrapping paper piled up in drifts across the carpet. Cinnamon candles burning so hard it smelled like a bakery had exploded. Corinne arrived early, of course. My sister does not really show up anywhere. She stages an entrance. She came in carrying glossy gift bags, with her 12-year-old son Beckett behind her wearing that easy confidence boys get when the whole world keeps telling them they matter most. Beckett is the golden grandchild. If my parents had a family crest, it would probably just be his face. Briar knows that. She never says it out loud, but she knows. She has learned the same trick I learned years ago. Smile. Stay small. Be good. Maybe someone will finally look at you like you count. Briar sat on the carpet in Christmas pajamas with her hands folded in her lap, waiting her turn like she was at the DMV, not under a tree. Beckett, meanwhile, was tearing through presents like joy had a time limit. New sneakers. A gaming headset. Some expensive electronic thing that made Dad laugh with that proud sound he only uses for him. Briar clapped for every gift. She actually clapped. My child has better manners than most adults I know. Then Mom said, in that bright voice she uses when she wants credit in advance, "Okay, this one is for Briar." I almost missed it, because I was still watching Briar pretend she was fine. Mom slid a rectangular box across the carpet. I saw the shape and the way Briar's eyes widened before she tried to make them polite again. She asked if it was really for her. Mom smiled. Dad nodded. Corinne's mouth twitched at the corner like she already knew the punchline. Briar unwrapped it slowly, like if she moved too fast the gift might vanish and turn into socks. Inside was an iPhone box. Not the newest model, not some influencer fantasy, but still real. Briar stared at it like it meant something bigger than a phone. She thanked them immediately, because she is the kind of child who knows gratitude can make adults less likely to take things back. And for one stupid second, my heart actually believed maybe this time they had chosen her. Mom made a little speech about how kids need phones now. For safety, for emergencies, for modern life. All the phrases adults use when they want to dress a decision up as thoughtful. Dad echoed her in that low, scripted way of his, like he was reading lines he had not written, but had agreed to say. Corinne nodded along, as if she had authored the whole thing. Briar just held the box in both hands, tapping the corner with one finger like she needed to keep checking it. It was real. She did not fully open it downstairs. There was too much noise, too much watching. Beckett had already disappeared with his new gadgets, and the whole living room had that loud holiday chaos that makes private joy feel impossible. A little later, Briar tugged on my sleeve and asked if we could go upstairs. I knew exactly what she wanted. Our room, the one place in that house where her face did not have to stay polite. So we went up. She sat on the bed and opened the box like it was sacred. Slowly, carefully. Inside was a silver phone, sleek and beautiful in the way expensive things always are, even when they carry the wrong kind of weight. Briar let out this tiny sound that was half laugh and half disbelief. She said she could not believe they had gotten her that. I tried to smile like a normal mother letting her child have a good moment, without poisoning it with suspicion. She lifted the phone and turned it in her hands. Then her face changed. She said it looked weird. I leaned in and saw the scratches. Not huge ones. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to catch the light and make the whole thing feel used. I said maybe it was refurbished. That people buy refurbished phones all the time. I said it too fast. Briar nodded because she wanted to believe me. She wanted to believe so badly she would have accepted almost any explanation as long as it ended with "they cared." Then she pressed the power button. The screen lit up. A logo flashed. And instead of a setup screen, it went straight to a home screen already alive with someone else's life. Briar blinked and asked if it was already on. Before I could answer, a notification dropped across the top. Just a banner. A few words. Briar squinted at it, then looked up at me with that open, trusting face and asked what it said. I leaned closer, and my blood ran cold before my mind fully caught up. The words on that screen did not belong on a Christmas gift for a child. They did not belong anywhere near my daughter at all. I did not shout. I did not snatch the phone and run downstairs breathing fire. I forced my face into something light, something soft, something that would not scare Briar before I knew exactly how bad it was. I said that was weird and asked to see it. She handed it over right away, because children are supposed to trust their mothers, and because she still thought this was just a glitch we would laugh about in 5 minutes. I tapped the screen once, then twice. It was not a glitch. It was a trail. A history. The kind of mess that only looks random from far away. I set the phone down gently on the bed and told Briar to go brush her teeth while I checked one thing. She hesitated because she wanted the phone, the moment, the joy. I promised her 2 minutes. She padded into the bathroom, and the second the door clicked shut, I picked the phone back up. My hands were steady. My stomach was not. I already knew enough to understand. This was not a careless oversight. Somebody in that house knew exactly what was on that device. Briar fell asleep later, like only an 11-year-old can. 1 minute glowing with excitement, the next drooling on a pillow. I did not sleep at all. Once her breathing settled, I opened the phone again and started digging. Not because it was noble, because I had already seen enough to know waiting until morning might be a luxury I did not have. WhatsApp opened without asking for a login. No verification. No reset. Just an inbox already full, like the phone had been wrapped in paper without bothering to remove its old life first. The first thing that hit me was not one horrible message. It was the volume. The same target over and over again. Thread after thread, all in the same tone. Not a fight. Not one ugly day. A pattern. I checked the call log. The same number appeared again and again. Repeated attempts, back to back. The kind of persistence meant to wear someone down. Then I saw the name. June. My throat tightened. June was a girl from Briar's school. Not someone Briar knew well, but well enough that I had heard the name before, in those lowered parent voices that say something went wrong, and nobody wants to be the one to say how wrong. June had disappeared from school mid-year. Transferred. Gone. No. And now, her name was sitting inside the phone. My parents had handed to my daughter with a bow on it. I did not need every detail to understand the shape of what I was seeing. This was not ordinary mean girl nonsense. It was sustained, targeted, ugly in a way that felt I clicked into media once and immediately regretted it. One glance was enough. Context, angle, the kind of wrong that does not require explanation. I backed out so fast my hand slipped. No, I was not going to sit in the dark and absorb every rotten piece of it just to prove to myself that it was rotten. I already knew. The only question left was how it ended up in Briar's hands. My brain offered the easiest explanation first because denial loves convenience. Maybe it had been Beckett's old phone. That part was believable. Golden grandsons get upgrades the way other kids get socks. Maybe mom and dad had simply re-gifted the old one without checking it. Cheap, careless, lazy, yes, but not malicious. I could almost work with careless. Careless was familiar territory in my family. Nothing there ever happened in a vacuum. Corinne has been the chosen one for as long as I can remember. My parents never had to announce it. Love in that house always had a direction, and it did not point at me. When Corinne had Beckett, the favoritism simply updated itself. He became the center of gravity. Everything he did was softened. Boys being boys. Spirited. confident, misunderstood. Briar learned the opposite lesson. Be polite. Be grateful. Do not make noise. She gets straight A's like she is still applying for approval. She clears plates without being asked and watches my parents' faces afterward. Like maybe this time they will notice she tried hard enough. I hate how well I recognize that look, because I used to wear it too. That is why the iPhone hit her like a miracle. That is why she hugged the box to her chest, like it meant she had finally been chosen. Now I was sitting in the dark holding proof that somebody had turned my daughter into a dumping ground for someone else's damage. I picked the phone up again and tried to answer the one thing that mattered most. Were my parents clueless, or were they complicit? Downstairs, I heard movement. A chair scraping. Corinne's voice. Mom's lower voice answering. Dad's gravel in between. They sounded normal, which in my family is usually the scariest thing of all, because normal is what they wear over whatever they are trying to hide. I set the phone down, stepped into the hallway barefoot, and moved toward the stairs as quietly as I could. Whatever came next, I wanted to hear it with my own ears. When I reached the stairs, Corinne's voice hit me first, sharp and fast. She said Delaney was going to notice. Mom answered in that maddeningly calm tone of hers, and said I already thought the phone was refurbished. Dad added that I would not do anything, because I never did. I went completely still. I know those voices. That blend of confidence and dismissal is what my family sounds like when they have already decided something for me and expect me to swallow it. Corinne said the school was involved now, and June's parents were not letting it go. Mom snapped back that it was serious. Then Corinne said she never thought it would get this far. Dad answered that it got this far because Beckett would not stop. My stomach clenched so hard, I thought I might actually be sick. Corinne said he was just a kid. And then Mom said the sentence that made everything lock into place. She said Briar was easier, disposable, safer to use. I pulled my phone from my pocket and hit record before I even fully decided to do it. Corinne asked what would happen if the police traced the phone. Dad said they would not trace it to Beckett if the phone was not with Beckett. Mom sounded almost satisfied when she said they gave it to Briar, and now it was in her room, in her hands. Corinne said I was going to freak out. Dad said I was always dramatic. Mom said Briar was a good girl, and she would be fine. Then Corinne laughed, just a little, and I understood the last missing piece. This was not just panic. This was strategy. They were not simply trying to protect Beckett. They were handing the device to my daughter, so the problem would live with her instead of him. Because he mattered more. Because she was easier. Because they trusted her to carry fallout without fighting back. I backed away from the stairs, holding the phone so tightly my fingers hurt. In the bedroom, I played back enough of the recording to know it was real. Then Briar walked out of the bathroom with damp hair and asked if she could have the phone now. I looked at my daughter and knew this house was over. I told Briar we were going out for a little while. I kept my voice light, almost playful, because children love surprises, and because I needed her calm, more than I needed honesty in that exact second. She perked up right away and asked where we were going. I said sleepover. Then I packed like I was evacuating, because that is what I was doing. A few outfits, toothbrushes, chargers, my wallet, both phones, the iPhone and mine. I texted Talia with one hand and asked if we could come over right now. She answered yes, before asking what was wrong. That was all I needed. Briar bounced around the room pulling on shoes while I zipped the bag and forced my hands to stay steady. Downstairs, Christmas music was still playing, and laughter was still leaking through the house like nobody had just volunteered my daughter as collateral damage. We came down the stairs together. Mom looked up first and asked where we were going. I said just out for a bit, then added sleepover before she could shape it into a debate. Briar echoed the word with a little burst of excitement. Mom's smile tightened. Dad's eyes narrowed in that quiet way of his, like he could feel control slipping and hated not knowing how. Corinne watched me too closely. Beckett stumbled into the room half awake, looked at my bag, and smirked. I did not look away, because I knew something he did not. The present they handed Briar that morning was no gift. It was evidence. Cold air hit my face the second we stepped outside. Briar tugged my hand and asked if she had done something wrong. That question broke me more cleanly than anything I overheard downstairs. I told her no immediately. Not ever. I said it so firmly she stopped searching my face for a second and just nodded. Talia opened her front door before I could finish knocking, took one look at me, and stepped aside. Briar ran inside the moment she saw the dog and the hot chocolate mugs on the counter. Children pivot fast when safety is offered cleanly. In the kitchen, I set the bag down and put the phone on the table. My hands started shaking only then, when Briar was out of sight. Talia asked what happened. I told her they gave Briar the phone on purpose. Not as a gift. As a dump site. Then I asked the only thing that mattered. Could Briar stay there while I handled the rest? Talia said yes, immediately. Of course she did. And guided Briar into the living room with blankets, snacks, and a movie like she had been preparing for this exact kind of emergency her whole life. I kissed Briar's forehead, told her I would be right back, and left before she could ask too many questions. I did not cry on the drive. Crying is for people who have time to fall apart. I drove straight to the station with both phones in my bag and the recording on mine. The roads were strange and empty in that Christmas night way, like the whole city had agreed to pretend nothing ugly ever happens during the holidays. Inside, the station was fluorescent and painfully normal. I told the officer exactly what I needed to tell him. That the phone had been given to my 11-year-old daughter as a Christmas present. That it had not been reset. That it contained message history and material connected to a student named June from Briar's school. That I had overheard a conversation and recorded it. I slid the iPhone across the counter first, then my own. I kept my voice even because panic would not protect Briar, but procedure might. They bagged both phones, logged everything, and walked me through the timeline. Christmas morning, the gift, the screen, the messages, the recording. When I left, no speeches, no dramatic promises, just a case number and a chain of custody. It was enough. When I got back to Talia's, Briar was asleep on the couch under a blanket that smelled like detergent and dog. She woke just long enough to ask whether I had gotten the phone fixed. I told her not yet. I said it needed to be checked first, and that I would explain later, but not tonight. She accepted that because children trust the adults they believe will carry the heavy things for them. Then my own phone started blowing up. Mom? Dad. Corinne. Missed calls stacked on top of each other. When I finally answered and put it on speaker, they did not ask what happened. They demanded to know what I thought I was doing. Corinne said I was ruining Beckett's future. Dad said I had gone to the police. Mom said this did not need to go that far. I stayed quiet just long enough for them to keep talking. Then the truth slipped out on its own. They knew the phone was tied to June. They knew her parents had already gone to the police. They knew exactly what was on that device when they put it in my daughter's hands. That was when the last piece of hope left me for good. I told them not to contact me again, and I hung up. After I hung up, I did not sit around waiting to see what version of the story they would try next. I already knew. Families like mine do not apologize first. They regroup. So I cut them off before they could reorganize themselves into innocence. I blocked numbers. I filtered emails straight to trash. I locked down every social account I had not bothered protecting before, because some foolish part of me still thought privacy was something family would respect on principle. Then I called Briar School. I kept my voice calm and factual. No drama, no tears. I told them no one from my family was allowed to contact her, pick her up, pass messages to her, or appear as a surprise adult with a sweet face and a lie. The woman on the other end listened, took notes, and asked whether I wanted that added formally to her file. Yes, I said. Formally. That word mattered to me more than I expected. Formal means written down. Formal means less room for charm. They did try anyway. Of course they did. A message sent through the school office that sounded innocent until you read it twice. An accidental run-in that was not accidental at all. One spectacularly stupid attempt to have somebody else hand Briar a note. I shut each one down the same way. Quietly. Completely. Then I filed for no contact. Not as a grand performance. Paperwork. Signatures. Dates. A very plain explanation that no one who had knowingly tried to hand my child evidence from a live school investigation was welcome anywhere near her again. That part felt cleaner than anger. It felt like architecture. Safety built one document at a time. Talia never once told me I was overreacting. She never suggested maybe they did not mean it like that. She made tea, kept Briar laughing, and let me move through those first days without having to defend my own reality. I did not know then what the fallout would look like for them. I only knew what I needed it to look like for us. No more access. No more chances. No more pretending this was still just difficult family behavior. By the time the paperwork started settling into place, something in me had settled too. Not grief exactly. Not relief yet either. Just the hard calm that comes after you finally stop negotiating with people who only understand doors once they hear them lock. We moved a few weeks later. A rental, technically. But it did not feel temporary the way temporary had felt in my parents' house. That place had always felt borrowed. Borrowed air. Borrowed kindness. Borrowed peace that could be revoked the second I made somebody uncomfortable. This new place was different from the minute we stepped inside. Bright windows. Quiet hallways. A kitchen small enough to feel manageable and clean enough to feel possible. Briar got her own room. Not half a room. Not a corner. Not a space she had to keep proving she deserved. A room with a door that belonged to her and walls she got to help decide. We sat on the floor the first afternoon with paint swatches, string lights, and a pile of things Talia sent over, because good people do not just rescue you once. They help you build after. Briar kept asking where things should go, and every time I told her she could choose, she looked startled all over again. I realized then how much of her little body had learned to brace in my parents' house. Not for violence, for correction. For being too loud, too visible, too much, too somewhere she should have known was not really hers. That first night, after the boxes were stacked and the takeout containers were in the trash, Briar sprawled across her new bed like she had discovered gravity could be kind. She looked up at the ceiling, then over at me, standing in the doorway, and said it felt peaceful. That was the exact moment I knew I had done the right thing. Not when I gave the phones to the police. Not when I blocked numbers. Not when I filed paperwork. There. In a quiet bedroom with badly folded blankets and one child finally stretching out, instead of curling inward, I sat on the edge of the mattress while she talked about where the fairy lights should go, and whether maybe she could put stars on one wall. Her voice had changed too. Less careful. Less performative. The old version of Briar had learned to read the room before speaking. This version was starting to speak first. When she fell asleep, she did it openly. One arm flung above her head, mouth half open, no apology in her posture at all. I stood there longer than I needed to, looking at her and understanding something simple. Homes are not proven by blood. They are proven by whether a child can exhale there without asking permission. I did not hear about the fallout directly, because I did not want updates from anyone who still thought family loyalty should outrank my child. But news travels anyway. It leaks through old friends, school parents, loose relatives, and the simple human inability to keep scandal to yourself once the official version starts cracking. Beckett was expelled, not gently transferred, not quietly withdrawn. Expelled. The school did not stretch the language to protect anybody's pride. Once the investigation finished, that was the end of it. My parents did not go to prison, But they did not walk away clean either. Trying to hand a device tied to a serious school case to an uninvolved child looks exactly as bad in writing as it sounds out loud. Community service. Probation. Mandatory classes they will probably describe for the rest of their lives as humiliating and unfair. From what I hear, fewer people are listening now. Corinne moved from furious to quiet, which is what often happens when someone realizes the story they rehearsed so carefully only works inside the family bubble. Outside that bubble, facts have a rude habit of staying facts. The message that hit me hardest came from June's parents. It was short. Just a thank you. No speech. No dramatic closure. Just relief. I cried when I read it. And then I deleted it. Not because it did not matter. Because I did not need proof anymore that I had done the right thing. I already had that proof sleeping in the next room. Briar is happy now. Not the polite version of happy she used to wear at my parents' house. The one that asked permission with every smile. The loud kind. The messy kind. The kind that laughs without first checking whether someone else is going to punish her for taking up space. She leaves books open on the couch. She sings badly in the kitchen. She asks direct questions and expects real answers. Sometimes she still asks whether people can lie that hard and still call it love. How? I tell her yes, some can. Then I tell her something more important. We do not have to live inside their lie just because they built it carefully. As for me, I do not miss them. I miss the family I wanted, maybe. The one I kept trying to find inside them. But that family never existed. This one does. This one is smaller, quieter, and real. What surprised me most after we left was not that they panicked. It was how quickly they tried to rewrite everything into something softer and more convenient. In my family, the truth is never denied head-on if it can be blurred instead. Mom did not say we gave your daughter that phone on purpose. She said things got misunderstood. Dad did not say we tried to use Briar to protect Beckett. He said emotions were high and Christmas got messy. Corinne did not say my son was wrong. She said boys do stupid things and families should handle things privately. That word, privately, always meant the same thing in that house. Quiet enough for the right people to keep winning. I stopped responding before they could turn me into part of the cleanup crew. Still, they kept trying in smaller ways. A relative reaching out to ask whether this had all really gotten that serious. A message passed through someone else's account saying Mom was sick with stress. A note sent toward Briar's school that sounded sweet until you read it with your eyes open. They never came with truth first. They came with pressure wrapped in concern. By then, I knew the pattern too well to mistake it for love. Talia saw it too. One night, after Briar had fallen asleep on the couch with glitter on her hands from some art project she swore was not messy, Talia asked whether my family had always been like this. I told her not always this exact shape, but always this system. Corinne at the center, Beckett right behind her, me somewhere off to the side being told not to make things harder. Briar had been handed the same role without anyone even needing to explain it. That was the part I could not forgive. Not the manipulation of me. The inheritance of it. The way they looked at my daughter and saw an easy place to put their risk. Once I said that out loud, something in me hardened all the way through. They were not just unsafe because of one awful decision. They were unsafe because when pressure hit, they chose the same person to sacrifice every time. And this time, that person was my child. The message from June's parents came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, while I was standing in our new kitchen, trying to decide whether frozen pizza counted as giving up. It was short enough to fit on one screen. Thank you for doing the right thing. That was all. No extra detail. No emotional speech. No request to connect. Just gratitude from people who had clearly spent too long watching adults fail their child, and had finally seen one person refuse to help bury it. I sat down at the table and stared at those words until they blurred. Briar was in the next room humming to herself while she taped paper stars to her wall. and I suddenly understood how close this had come to landing on her, harder than it already had. If I had brushed the phone off, if I had waited until morning, if I had gone downstairs and argued instead of recording, if I had trusted family to fix family. There are so many ways a child can become collateral when adults choose comfort over truth. Briar wandered in a few minutes later and asked whether I was okay. I told her yes, just thinking. She climbed into the chair across from me and started telling me a story about a girl in class who wore a Santa headband for 3 days after Christmas because she did not want the holiday to end. Halfway through, she stopped and asked something that hit me harder than the message had. She asked whether I thought people could tell when a grown-up was lying, or if kids just had to guess. I told her some people can tell right away, and some people learn later. But either way, the lie still belongs to the liar, not the person who noticed it. She nodded like she was storing that somewhere important. That night, I let myself cry for exactly 3 minutes in the shower where she could not hear me. Not because I doubted what I had done, because I knew how many children never get that kind of interruption. They get told to move on, to stay quiet, to keep family matters inside the house. June did not get that from me. Briar did not get that from me either. The message on my screen was small, but it felt like a witness statement from the universe. Someone else knew the truth. Someone else knew what had almost happened, and someone else knew I had not looked away. The biggest change was not legal. It was not the expulsion, or the paperwork, or the classes my parents hated having to take. It was Briar. Before all of this, she moved through the world like she was waiting for a rule to appear. She opened gifts carefully, laughed quietly, watched adult faces before deciding how excited she was allowed to be. At my parents' house, that habit had sharpened into survival. She knew Beckett got the loud joy, the real attention, the automatic forgiveness. She knew she got the version of love that had to be earned by being easy. After we moved, I started seeing that habit loosen. At first it was small. She asked for a second, helping without apologizing. She left her markers spread out on the table and did not rush back to clean them the second she heard me coming. She laughed too hard at one of Talia's bad jokes and then did not immediately glance up to see if someone was annoyed. One Saturday morning, I walked into her room and found clothes all over the bed, music playing, and Briar spinning in circles because she could not decide between 2 shirts. It should have been ordinary. It felt enormous. She looked up and asked which one looked more like her. Not which one was less annoying. Not which one made less trouble. Which one looked more like her. I sat on the bed and helped her choose while pretending that question did not break me open a little. Later that afternoon, she asked if I thought people could get better after doing something awful. I told her sometimes they can, but getting better starts with truth, and some people would rather lose everything than tell it. She thought about that for a second and said that seemed like a lot of work just to stay mean. I laughed so hard, I had to sit down. That was when I knew she was coming back to herself. Not the polite version she wore for adults who made her earn softness. The real one. Sharp, dumb, funny, observant, a little messy, fully alive. My family spent years teaching me that peace meant not causing discomfort. Briar was learning something else entirely. Peace is what happens when you stop handing yourself over to people who need you smaller in order to feel bigger. And once I saw her living inside that lesson, I knew I would protect it at any cost. The more distance I got from that Christmas, the clearer the whole thing became. They did not just hand my daughter a used phone by accident. They selected her. That is the part I keep coming back to when people ask whether maybe they were just stupid, careless, panicked, overwhelmed. Careless does not sound like my mother downstairs, saying the phone was in Briar's hands now. Panic does not sound like my father, calmly explaining that it could not be traced back to Beckett if it was not with Beckett anymore. This was not chaos. It was a transfer. Risk moved from the child they wanted to protect to the child they thought could absorb it. Because Briar was easier. Because I was dramatic. Because in my family, there has always been one person whose mistakes get softened and another whose pain gets treated like background noise. Once I named it that plainly, I stopped feeling tempted by the softer explanations. My parents did not fail in some passive way. They made an active choice. Corinne did too. They looked at an 11-year-old girl who still hugged a Christmas gift to her chest like love might disappear if she set it down, and they decided she was the safest place to hide their problem. That is not favoritism anymore. That is moral cowardice with a holiday ribbon on it. The thing I am proudest of is not that I moved fast. It is that I did not let them drag me into their language. I did not argue about intention. I did not debate whether they meant harm. I looked at what they did. I looked at the phone, the recording, the call, the attempts afterward, and I responded to the reality in front of me. People like my parents survive on the distance between action and name. They count on everyone else to keep choosing gentler words. Misunderstanding, family stress, bad judgment. I am done with that. What they did to Briar was not a misunderstanding. It was a decision. And once I understood that, every next step became easy. If I had to name the real gift hidden inside that Christmas, it was not the phone. It was exposure. My family finally did something so clear, so ugly, so impossible to explain away, that I could not keep pretending there was still a softer truth underneath it. For years, I kept hoping there was. Hoping Mom was cold, but not cruel. Hoping Dad was passive, but not complicit. Hoping Corinne was selfish, but not dangerous. Hoping favoritism was just one of those sad family imbalances people survive if they work hard enough and stay gracious enough and do not ask for too much. Then, they put that phone in my daughter's hands and turned hope into evidence. After that, I did not have to guess anymore. And strange as it sounds, clarity is a kind of freedom. Briar and I do not live in their story now. We do not wake up inside their rankings, their excuses, their private definitions of who matters most. We live in a smaller life, but it is honest. She has her own room. I have my own front door. We eat dinner without anyone performing generosity for an audience. She laughs without checking faces first. I sleep without my body listening for the next quiet betrayal. That is not a dramatic ending. It is better than one. It is stable. June's parents got the truth. Briar got safety. Beckett got consequences that belonged to him instead of being pushed onto somebody easier to sacrifice. And I got something I should have taken a long time ago. The right to stop calling people family just because they share my history. So when people ask whether I went too far, I think of Briar on Christmas morning holding that box, like it meant she had finally been chosen. Then I think of her now, singing badly in her room, leaving books open on the couch, asking direct questions because she knows I will answer them honestly. That is my answer. I did not go too far. I went exactly far enough to make sure my daughter never learns that love means becoming useful to other people's lives.